CataractCoach.com, podcast series, episode number 148 with Dr. Bill Bond. Some amazing life lessons that no one else is going to teach you, plus some good old-fashioned laughs. You're going to enjoy this one. Welcome back to our Cataract Coach podcast. And today, we got a very special guest, a very dear friend who has taught me more about life than, dare I say, my own father. And that is my good friend, Dr. Bill Bond, an ophthalmologist in Pekin, Illinois. Welcome, Bill.
Well, thank you very much, Uday. Very flattering. Looking good. I don't know. I learned a great deal from you.
Yeah, we all learn from each other, that's for sure. But every time we're in a meeting together, I always make it a point, let me schedule a dinner with Bill Bond, because I know for sure we are going to get some serious life lessons.
Well, yeah, that's right. If only not what to do. Huh? Yeah, serve as a bad example.
Of course. Listen, I think as we get older, certainly there's a thing called wisdom.
Yeah.
That, boy, only in retrospect do we realize when we were young, we were dumber than a bucket of rocks.
Oh, shit. Mostly, as Oscar Wilde said, experience is the name we give to our mistakes, and that's certainly been the case with me. I've been a hammerhead all my life. I've been slow to pick up on a lot of things. And so I get some hard knocks. And even then, doesn't always knock enough sense into me. I have to, thank you.
Yeah, but I think that's true for all of us.
Yeah.
And one of the important lessons I learned very early on, I was lamenting to you 20 years ago about some nonsensical, something in my life, just something bad, who knows? And you just said, remember, don't tell anyone, because first, no one cares. And no one will give you sympathy. And in fact, some people are even happy that you're suffering.
Oh, that's right. That's straight from my father. Yeah, I had great source of wisdom, my dad. Yeah, he did. I was 8 years old talking to him. He said, well, it's fine for talking to me because I'm your family, but don't ever tell anybody your trouble. Half of them don't give a damn, and the other half are happy you're having trouble. Oh, yeah. That's entirely true. Nobody gives a damn how you feel. Don't tell anybody how you feel unless they ask you. And if they ask you, say fine.
But there's so much truth. It sounds funny, like a joke, but there's so much truth in that.
Yeah. Oh, there's so much. Some comics, I think, are basically their entire deal is telling the truth. They stand in front of you and they say what everybody's thinking, and all they got to do is just be candid. They're saying, "Boy, you don't look good at all," or this or that, or they tell me this, and it's funny because it's true, but so much that way that a lot of people, if something's true, if something's funny, you need to check it for being true. You get a lot of people, you know what I mean? When people have got their guard down, they'll tell you real stuff.
Yeah, it was like the late comedian George Carlin, right?
Oh, yeah. Absolutely.
His was all basically truths, which was so funny.
Yeah. Richard Pryor, I'm thinking of, another Peoria, Illinois boy.
Oh.
Yeah, his basic deal was just say what you're thinking, Yeah.
I like George Carlin one he says, just think how stupid the average person is. And remember, half are stupider than that.
Half of them are stupider than that. Yeah, that's absolutely right. Oh, yeah. And artificial intelligence is making the slow, scary progress, but it seems like artificial stupidity is more or less perfected. You can go and try to get on a computer. There's nothing dumber than a dumb computer. And in fact, I'm trying to quantify that for later talk. What would be the amounts? If you have a science, you're going to have numbers. What would be the amount of frustration with a computer you could have? Well, what I would call, maybe pick a name, but a Gates unit, the exact point where if the computer were a person, you'd lean across the table and punch it in the face. That's, say, a 1.0 Gates unit, or 00. People experience multiples, like you could have 4 to 6 times people who run over them with their cars, throw them out of a 6th floor window. But how are you doing? Well, I was feeling about 0.3 of a Gates, Yeah, 1 GU. And I mean, there it is. You could actually discuss that. If Helen of Troy is the face to launch 1,000 ships, the beauty to launch one ship is 1 millihelen. And therefore, you could go from that. And will that go into the red numbers or anything? You never know. Yeah. I've learned very much from my friend, Dr. Devgan. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting. You're now putting these amazing lessons and discussions into the Dr. Bond podcast, which I love, the Bond Report.
Thank you very much, Uday. I appreciate that. If I can get up on the level of the cataract coach there, I will be very flattered and pleased. I've learned very much from watching yours. It's been super, but it's also a great deal to have people actually telling you the truth. Most guys at a meeting or something will present some case, and then everybody's 20/20 and the sun shines out of their asshole, when they're done. You got to have the truth in those things, and you've always been good at that and incorporating that and telling the story with some joie de vivre. Yeah, I've
Yeah,
learned a lot from you.
Well, thank you, but mine's obviously very different focus. I
Yeah.
first saw your first saw the Dr. Bond report a couple months ago when you started. You had a great discussion about what is a provider, because I don't like that term provider.
I don't either. Yeah, breadwinners, providers, as they try to pull the doctors out of the system and say everything's the team. And the last time you hear that is from Lennon and those guys. We're nothing by ourselves. We're getting rid of the great artiste. We don't think people should be entrusted with this. We're all better as a team. Whether or not that's true, they're certainly taking away the people's idea what a doctor is and everything. Well, the first thing let's do is let's call it something else. Let's not call any. Winston Churchill said that, one of my very favorites. All you want to, he says, if you want to make enemies of everyone, see, the very first thing you do is start calling everything by its real name. He said, and in 2 weeks, you won't be able to go out of your house. And very, very true. And a lot of your own life has to illustrate that. You go somewhere and they'll say, well, this, or you're in the middle of making your last mistake. And you think, this is what those guys were talking about, isn't it? And I just stepped right in this. And it enables you. Sometimes I take 2 or 3 times to make the same mistake. Experience enables you to make a mistake once you've made it again. No, that was what I did that other time. Yeah. I guess it took 2 that time. Well, 3 is the hat trick. Sometimes you never learn.
But life basically is just a series of mistakes.
Well, life's a series of lessons, with the big one for the last one, I guess. But I mean, what do you need to know? That's a good looking print you got behind you.
Oh, thank you. Now, how did you get started with the idea of making this YouTube channel? And by the way, we're going to link the YouTube channel below. Please check on it. I am a subscriber. I'm a big fan.
Well, thank you very much, Uday. I couldn't be more pleased to hear that. Thank you. It began at meetings. My friend Spencer Thornton started it in Hawaii. Could I fill in some stuff on a meeting he was having? And I've always been extraordinarily vain about this. They're trying to make that sound good. The last minute he tells me, can you double the time? I say, sure. And then it kind of caught on. My friend Guy Kazarian put it on in a big way at the ECOS meetings that we have out in, there used to be the Delaney meeting out in Vail or Aspen, one of those Aspen, one of the ski things. And it took off from there. And I got asked to do it various times. It's really hard to remember who you're talking for because you don't want to step on toes quite as hard as you can, And so, there's all these landmines. Normally the room is filled with these landmines. And you're trying not to step on them any more than you usually do, But that's how it got started. And I've been a little self-indulgent about it because I don't have a lot of squeaking guys saying you've only got 5 minutes and 45 seconds because we got to get to our next topic. And so let's squeeze it into that. And by the way, just meeting stuff that happens to everyone. So I'm trying.
But even how the meetings have changed, you've noticed. Like even at some of the meetings, they got rid of like the personality section, right? The personal section, and now it's replaced with like oculoplastics or like pediatrics.
Well, this is all this trend of providers and things. You've got to have a lot more. They've got a lot more of a company face, and you better not talk. And once again, you got to weigh things. You don't have the meetings that the big guys used to give where they go in there and they drop everything and let's tell the truth. Let's put the microphones down and let's do some truth. That used to be a great avenue for growth. Say you look like hell, you're putting on some weight and what the hell's up with the so-and-so, you got an eyelid drooping, where did that shake come from? You've got to have somebody somewhere telling you the truth or you're going to think you're just terrific. We've all seen that as parents. They raise these snowflake children, they loose them upon an unsuspecting public, and there you are, and all of a sudden you're doing the things that the kid's mother and father should have been doing all those years, thinking, gee, maybe I can send somebody a bill for these. lessons for people who can't bring their kids up. It takes a village to raise a child. Well, it shouldn't. It ought to take, come on. Yeah.
Now that we're all becoming just providers, what's the future of all this? I also saw you had a very humorous song you made called 16 Cases.
I just put this on there. Did you listen to that last night?
I did.
I wrote it. It looked to me like the old timers that wore those lights on their heads, coal miners. When the old time doctors used to have those mirrors on there, I thought, here we are. There's the provider right there. The government makes us all the same. And here we are. We're getting up in the day. We're going down the elevator. We're working in the coal mine. My dad would told me for years, there's two kinds of job. There's the kind of job where you take a shower before you go to work, and there's the kind of job where you take a shower after you come home from work. And that's it. And that's two jobs. And they're taking us from the first job where I take a shower before I went to work, and they're going to make us the guys who take a shower when they come home from work. I don't think that's a good thing. And as I get old enough to be a patient, I'm scared for where the world's going. It doesn't seem to be the great artiste, the Leonardos and the, what they'd call a cult of personality, but there was an artistic temperament there that the world gets progressively less and less ready to tolerate.
Right. Yeah.
I remember when the cataract guys, the great artiste, Yeah, not anymore. You're a cog in a wheel. You're spare parts. You can be replaced.
That's the truth. That's for sure.
Yeah, there doesn't seem to be the artist. Well, we got a random guy coming. Here's your doctor who's you've never met. It's surprising, really, because of all the schooling we did the old days. I'm used to this from being an old timer. You walk into a room and you're somebody's 25-year-old kid, and you're in some ER somewhere, and this guy who's never met you said, well, what we're going to do is slit you from your guggle to your zots there and look around in there and rummage around, see, and they'll say, okay. I mean, it's a different world. And now you're correctly questioning everything. You don't know who you're talking to. They put this white coat on, go in there and act like a provider for a while. There's a facade. You put your fist through it, and it's just made paper mache. They're like chocolate Easter bunnies, and they're air on the inside, Sorry.
Yeah. Where will ophthalmology end up then? I mean,
well, I'm hoping for a long and prosperous future, like I hope for you, David. I'll tell you, back to your podcast, when I wanted to get specific advice about a specific problem, you've got them so brilliantly organized, cataloged, and the advice is helpful in real world. And I've gotten a lot out of those videos. A lot of the time in the old days, it would be, that's truth. Look what I can do. Look with this. You're able to sublimate your ego in there in a way that I envy a lot. That's very hard for me to get mine under a bushel all the way, so it doesn't creep out.
Well, I tried my best, but there's certainly been times when my ego gets out of check.
Sure. Normally, life will bring that in. There's an Ambroise Paré. He said, if the surgeon does not understand humility, God will teach it to him. And how true that is. Yeah. That's a guy it's like they'll have a story and they'll say it's written by a doctor, and they teach you enough, as you know, if you're part of our tribe, you can tell in the first 3 sentences whether you're talking to a doctor or not. Providers, not so much, but you can tell the first 3 sentences of so-and-so. You learn how to talk and walk and be that way. It's a very different thing that they're teaching the kids now. And anybody under 50 is a kid now. So, I mean, I'll allow for that. Yeah. The perspective on that changes. Right now, I'm 73, so I'm middle-aged as far as I'm concerned. You don't feel like an old guy. You feel like a young guy who's got something the matter with him, You really don't change your mental outlook after about 25 or, but it'll change for you. Yeah. Well, thank you for your comment.
Yeah, that's for sure. For sure. No one after a certain age, no one feels their age.
No. Mine, 25 or 30, you stopped, in a way, you kind of stop learning unless, when you're a kid and you're a 2-year-old and you're soaking in language like a sponge. And now every time you get an idea, it's like you're dragging a body up a flight of stairs. You got to really do it, remember where you put it, and do all this other stuff. There's all these separate machine parts you got to maintain. And Yeah, it's a different thing. And I've enjoyed writing these talks and try to get it out there, all my, priceless pearls of wisdom there that seem to me to be common sense. And I learn a little more common sense additionally all the time as it gets less common.
Right.
No.
Common sense not that common.
Oh, yeah. No, it's not. And not always on me either. And you go to there's nothing quite as dumb as a dumb machine, though. You'll go to apply for something on the internet and you get into some badly designed program, and it's worse than talking to the dumbest guy who was ever born. And you really are very early ready to punch it in the face. It was a person, come on, I'm listening to you.
Right.
But you need
well,
to
now
see.
People are being replaced left and right with the AI stuff now. Good luck calling anywhere, having a human answer the phone.
There is an Alan Turing story where he was trying to develop that artificial intelligence in the Second World War. And he said to one of their administrators, well, I know we can't get, but I'm sure we can duplicate the intelligence of, say, a guy such as yourself who hasn't got very much, and insulted this guy at length and was probably just kind of talking. The intelligence of a guy like me, I don't know if we can get right away, but I know someone with your type of intelligence, we could get that very quickly. And there's a certain kind of intelligence that Alan did not have, that you can say that story proving there are many kinds of intelligence, and you can tell them by their lack quicker than when people have got them. Yeah.
Right.
You look good. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah. Well, thank you. I appreciate whatever plug I can get right now, But you've got
for sure. This podcast goes out to tens of thousands, and the link will be down below.
Yeah. Not mine yet. I'm trying to get, this could be my big break. I hope so. I would be honored to be attached to the coattails. So every time I've talked to you, I've benefited.
Always. Oh, you're too sweet.
Which isn't the point. And every time you get they got a word for that, and it's not a nice word, but I mean, I also say I enjoy the interaction very much of your, George Patton saying, well, I'm my own favorite general, like George Patton, but your talks I always look forward to when you were at meetings. You had a guy who was going to tell the truth. You had a guy who was not going to gild a lily. You had a guy who wasn't going to came out and, everybody's 20/20 and the sun shines out of their asshole. That wasn't true. And I got a lot out of that.
For sure. I stand on the shoulder of the giants, Certainly one of my mentors for this was Bobby Osher, like the first guy to he's going to show you his complications. So bless him. He's like the godfather.
Yeah, I agree with that. And you learn from that. The Godfather also wanted to hear bad news immediately. That was his big thing in the book. He had a lot of wisdom stored up from his life of hard knocks. But yeah, I was thinking something there went right off the rails. When I was 30 years ago.
You had a quote in your bond report, a Don Corleone quote. Speaking of the Godfather, Don Corleone quote. He said, be careful what you tolerate, because you're teaching other people how to treat you.
Yeah, you're teaching people how to treat. That's Michael. That's not the old man. But
that's you are. Son.
Yeah, but that's telling the truth. You are teaching people how to treat you. I had a tough time picking the picture for that one because there's so many good Michael things. The ones I like is where he's sitting in the chair looking at you like he's thinking of buying you, and he got his hands over the drapes of that, the arms of that chair, looking at you like, oh, tell me something good. I'm thinking of Herb Kaufman, my old chief, and the two things I'd use to phrase him is here is a guy who is not fond of listening to nonsense and does not enjoy having his time wasted. I actually said this. I was a resident. I'm walking around. I'm supposed to assist him on a case. I'm like a first-year resident. And he says, you need to quit walking around so much. You're making me nervous. You pace around. And I say, I'm a kid and I'll say anything to anybody. I'm a stupid kid. And I said, well, Chief, you're not exactly known for your patience anyway. And he looks right up at me, and he's used to residents and fellows. You could talk back to the guy, and he just said, yeah, well, be that as it may. You're going to find you're not going to get Albert Einstein doing these jobs, getting these towels out, doing these things. And as you get older and you find out the time really is money, there he was. Yeah. Yeah. How true that is, particularly as we get back to money. Yeah.
That's a hard life lesson. That I don't think hit me until age 50 when I had to look in the mirror and say, you know what? For sure, I'm on the second half here.
Oh, yeah. Over the real. Yeah. Welcome. And it's good to have you. And you probably brighten up our side a lot more than it was. Yeah. As we get older and perhaps wiser,
Yeah, there've been,
This would be
there, there've been
typical.
some there've been some hard lessons, I tell you.
Yeah. Oh,
Public
yeah.
ophthalmology, the quote key opinion leader stuff
Yeah.
is a tough world. Let me tell you, it's cruel.
Yeah. KOLs. Now, I tried to do a breakdown. I was going to write a slide. K could stand for knucklehead or for know-it-all.
Mhm.
O could stand for obnoxious, obstreperous, a lot of things. Key opinion, KOL, you could be a liar, lame ass, and you could get a lot of things to mean, gee, this was a knucklehead, obstreperous, lame ass that we had so-and-so, a KOL,
Yeah, that's also changed a lot. I tell you, in the last decade or so, well, there's a lot more corporate influence there.
Yeah.
I'm seeing a lot more infomercials on the podium.
Oh, yeah. And particularly when they go by the name of science. And I'm actually going to try that in the game of a future talk. Those old things where the doctors endorse brands of cigarettes, smoke Luckies, they're healthier than Chesterfields. I'm not making this up. Or,
I know.
And it goes by the name of science. Another good thing you can say, I've said in one of those, if a thing's got science in the name, it's almost never a science. You can go off of that. Just like if something's got liberation in the title, it never liberated anything or anybody. If something's got science in the title, creation science, solentology, social science, creation science, that ain't science. You can go off of that very early on,
I think you may be right. I'm trying to think of an example
yeah.
with science. It's not fun.
This is what they teach as an old-time doctor. The first thing you're thinking of when a guy's telling you something is you're thinking of counter examples. Oh, gee, that's not true because of this. And it finds out you have nothing. You're thinking, well, oh, yeah, you're full of crap till proven otherwise. Therefore, I'm going to get a counter example. And nothing's coming. Yeah,
Right.
yeah. You find the truth of that statement by trying to knock holes in it. And, which is the very scientific method, using science to debunk science. Yeah.
It's funny. That's the medical training, right? You had another quote from Sir Arthur Conan Doyle, noted author, but also physician.
Noted author, also an oculist, like all the great authors in the outside world, ophthalmologists, Robin Cook, Michael Crichton, trained to be ophthalmologists. We are a proud and at one time a handsomely paid field. Well, you got me there. Conan Doyle, excuse me, sir, I'm not I'm not a devil. I'm a fully functioning sociopath. You need to do your research. So, yeah. And I mean, he's oculist. I'll tell you, some of those are my favorites. Oh, yeah. You can quote him at length about almost anything. That thing was about lesson. Well, Watson, life is a series of lessons, with the biggest for the last. And that's a Sherlock Holmes from somewhere. There was a guy.
You had another funny quote, which was, I can't remember where you get. From the Joker. You had a quote where
oh, yeah. Yeah.
Buy a man a plane ticket, he flies for a day.
Yeah.
Throw him off of a plane in the middle of the sky, he flies for the rest of his life.
Push a man out of a plane, he flies for the rest of his life. Life lessons from the Joker. I've been wanting to get more lessons from the Catwoman myself, but I get them from the Joker and the Riddler, and yeah, wild people,
There's some brilliance there. Really, there's some. But you know what? Now the crazy part is, online, we've trained obviously AI with all of this humanly created content.
Yes.
But now people are saying that like half the new content being created or more is now just machines creating it based on the other. You're losing original content now.
Well, you're losing the original stuff. You don't know what you're hearing. You don't know what you're seeing. Everybody who's doing this is selling you something. You get a guy who smiles all the time. He's selling something that doesn't work. I'm thinking there's a John Barrymore quote where he said, "You never know how short a month is until you pay alimony." I'm a guy who made payments on a sunrise. We were going to do the cautery things on the cornea. I bought a sunrise for $160,000 and did 2 cases, and the second case would have killed me and cut me into little pieces. And I got a recovery from that. I wasn't able to use that. That's $160,000 right in the crapper. And John Barrymore is telling me somewhere, you never know how short a month is. I remember making them payments for this, boat anchor that I'll sell sometime. But I kept it in the room with me for a long time, just to kind of, lest we forget, keep your powder dry, look over there. And I kept that
For a
as
young
thing.
ophthalmologist, who doesn't know what this is, there's a thing called Sunrise LTK, laser thermal keratoplasty. Idea is you'd make basically burns in the peripheral cornea to steepen the central cornea, to quote, treat your presbyopia.
Oh, yeah. The easiest thing to fool people on is when they really, really want something to be true. And we've tried to say this is the thing that will get you that accommodation. And since we really, really want it to be true, Feynman and those guys talking about in science, you got to get it where you don't fool anybody, but the easiest guy to fool is yourself. And you really want to, because you want this to be true. And that is the God's truth. And you tell somebody something they want to hear or something that agrees with what they want, you can't have an easier guy to fool than me. I'm going to buy this another $50,000 piece of equipment, and it's going to make everything perfect. It's going to make the patient smart. We're going to do this. We're going to do that. And somewhere you got the other thing on your shoulder telling you, well, this isn't going to work. But you think, nah, this will be fine. Just another 50 and we're home, But we used to call the refractive surgery nickel, which is now probably 100. Yeah. We're going to take this entirely on faith, Well,
you knew they were in trouble with the Sunrise LTK because they have the best parties at the Academy and the ACRS. Like they spend money like it was water.
Like it was water. Money like it was. Everything's got to be good, right? Yeah. Oh, yeah. That's absolutely right. Yeah, I'd get invited to speak at some of those, and I always enjoyed it because you have a whole subset of people that know what you're talking about. For instance, if I pull my reading glasses out, the general public won't know anything, but pull your readers out at the podium when you can't read your notes and say, it sucks to be a Presbyterian or something, and put your readers on. Ophthalmologic audience will go wild. The general public will wait for something to happen, thinking, maybe you're going to die or something. When does the show start? Come on, know your audience. And we've got our own little. We really want this to be true. We've got these examples abound.
Yeah, that's for sure. I also remember being at. There was a big party at one of the Academy or ACRS of a venture fund trying to raise money. And they had such a lavish party. I thought, this must be investors' money being spent.
Yes, exactly right. And see, what they'll do is they've got a ready excuse. They've got a sentence or something like a guy memorizing a slogan. And they'll say, well, this is how we get our name on the map. And I'm thinking, this is J.P. Morgan, man. And J.P. Morgan would tell you there's at least two reasons why people do things. There's the one they give you, and there's the real one. And there's at least two. And that's a reason, but that's not the reason. And, that agenda is always going on, And all you got to do is tell the truth on these things because people so seldom do. Because I was thinking, I remember we had a speaker one time. I hope you get to edit this, Uday, because I just about used names and
We're
things.
having a good time. Keep going. Okay. We're natural here.
Okay. A speaker we had for either Summit or somewhere, and I remember thinking to the guy, you're very obviously seeing your slides from corporate, and you haven't even read them. So therefore, I'm seeing your slides before you read them because I'm pretty sure I can read a little faster than you. And so therefore, I see these slides before you. And yet it's me who's sitting there, sitting down, whereas you can't sit down anywhere because you might fall off your wallet, What's wrong with this picture? Yeah.
I think we're done with those chicken dinners, the corporate chicken dinners where they literally they get some other doctor to read you slides as if I can't read them myself.
Oh, yeah. I learned how to read years ago. I tried to tell my wife this once, I learned how to read many years ago. And I'll tell you, when you go to speak for a corporation, which I've been available for years, but they don't trust me, I've, with reason, I might add, I go off topic all the time because that's what I do with myself. And boy, they want you to read what the party line is. This is not, this wasn't what you that's not part of what we agreed on down there at the last meeting of the party. And furthermore, you've been getting way too uppity. Furthermore, you're getting off topic. We don't think you can be trusted, and it may be time for you to be re-educated a little bit. I'm getting some doubts about the comrade, and he may not understand the collective nature of the party. We got to make him more of a provider. He can provide for us. He can provide for himself. But first off, let's provide for us. Yeah. You know what I'm talking about better than I do.
How did we physicians, how did we doctors lose control of the whole thing? None of the medical system now is run by physicians, whereas decades ago it definitely was.
Well, the patients quit perceiving. Now you go to a system. You don't go to your own doctor. You go to, I think it had to do with us becoming away from a cottage industry. There was a time, you and I are joking about this, but there was a time when there was a guy with a local gas station. And the most time out of joint, what's the word? I never used to grope for words like this. The time is different. Well, it's Doc Brown and Michael J. Fox pull up to some service station in one of the Back to the Future movies. And the first thing you see is four guys running in lockstep, wearing bow ties, white spotless overalls like Vodka Gravis, and they're running out to your car to start pumping the oil, change your oil, blow up your windshield, change your gas. And the most anachronistic, which was the word I would reach in for, was those gas station guys. I'm going to give my son everything he'd ever need. I'm going to give him a gas station. He'll have a job all of his life. He'll do things for people. He'll know everybody. That was your doctor. And now you go to a corporate place. Gee, they're convenient. They open all the time. One guy's much the same as another. We're all a bunch of spare parts. It's good to remember that everybody's just the same, but they're not.
Right.
They're going to make
that's the problem now. So it's now a doctor's a very small cog in the wheel.
Yes.
And now you're easily replaced.
Yeah, easily replaced, interchangeable, all look the same. And since I don't know medical advice from my ass in the ground, when I don't watch car insurance or lawyer commercials, the other one is drugs.
Yeah.
That right now is the holy trinity of car commercials. If there were no car insurance, no lawyers wanting to ambulance chase, and no drugs, there would be no television. There would be no commercials. It would all be just nothing. It'd be the Wright brothers trying to fly another couple of 100 yards,
Right. Yeah. No, I think, but you know what, the world's nicely changing, especially like in the ophthalmology world. You notice that we talked about not going to the chicken dinners anymore. We talked about on the podium, you can tell who's giving an infomercial. But when was the last time we picked up a trade journal to even read them? Or even the peer review. Everything's just completely online now.
Yeah.
We no longer buy a book to learn a surgical technique. We watch a video.
No. We want a video which you've done a beautiful job. Surgery does lend itself to that because you can watch a guy. I remember thinking this at the grand rounds. I've been in the residency about 3 weeks. And so this is why universities, for instance, are filled with knowledge because, you go in there at 18 and who knows more than an 18-year-old. You go into that university and you go out of there as a senior as knowing you're kind of a dumbass. Well, where does that knowledge go? Well, the conservation of energy, like knowledge, it stays at the university. So that's a place where knowledge is. So the knowledge just kind of accumulates there. So you go there to kind of be around it, hope it comes in by osmosis. And I forgot our original point there, which I do all the time now and didn't used to. So where did the knowledge go? Or remind me, Uday, hell, I lost the thread.
Yeah, so that's a whole nother catch too with the universities. And so now even you had a recent post about junior faculty versus the big private practice guy.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. That's
but even universities now, even academic departments of ophthalmology are now just run like a big medical group, and I think the academic part is less important now than the business part.
Oh, it is, but it's always been. I had our neuro-ophthalmologist Hank Van Dyke tell me that one time when I'm getting to be a good buddy of his when I'm a second-year resident. He'd pull a bottle of whiskey out of his lower right desk drawer, set it there, pour a couple of glasses, and say, "I'm a neuro-ophthalmologist." He said, ophthalmology, we don't talk about this, but everything runs by money. So you got to have a subspecialty where you got to have a lot of volume. He said you got to have cornea and retina because those are big cases and they pay well. This is the days where that was true. He said you get a guy sometimes for, laughs, well, I was strabismus guy. Glaucoma's getting more devices, so it don't be okay. But he said, I'm a neuro-ophthalmologist, which means I'm a loser. I went to a lucrative field and I picked the one thing that doesn't pay, who's the asshole? And so that was the Hank Van Dyke life lesson. He says, you look for a guy that gravitates toward what pays the least. He's telling me this, goddamn, almost 50 years ago.
Your second year residence.
Well, yeah, I'm a second year resident, but they say they're going to teach you something, and they do. They're not lying, Now, when you acquire knowledge, the knowledge you really give up, education's not a pretty thing. Real education, when you think of things you really remember, you pay for that with pieces of your hide, And the lessons you really retain, you remember, you might pay it with money, but often you pay for it with some kind of, they call you lefty, or you've got one eye or something. But that's a lesson you can retain, And so that's the tuition that God, if you will, exacts, And now you know something. How do you like it, But I won't step in that again. Yeah, that's the truth, a melancholy truth, as truth so often is. Oh, the one I've liked the most, making up, Uday, is this: being a pseudoscientist. Stand up and say, excuse me, young man, I am a pseudoscientist, and I am sure there is a pseudoscientific explanation for what you're saying. That is my own personal favorite. Yeah.
No, so what advice?
You have pseudoscience, yeah.
You have so much great wisdom to share. What advice would you give to, so let's say, a young ophthalmologist just finishing training, listening to this podcast?
Oh, my.
What advice you got?
Watch Uday do what he does. That's where the money is. Uday is normally the first guy to do the right thing. You need to get on. Well, the thing is about Herb Kaufman had that, and you have that, is you see past the shimmering surface to all the principles operating below, Isaac Newton and those guys. There's a kind of an intelligence that'll memorize a lot of details, but they don't see through into these simple principles that underlie it. And those simple principles inform everything you do. And you can deduce everything from that, like some dinosaur vertebra. You had that early on, and therefore your talks were extremely worthwhile because you were proceeding from a basis of real knowledge. And you weren't just...
I'll give you the counter to that. I'm actually not as smart as most ophthalmologists, so I have to work harder. And I always wanted to give a simple talk that I would enjoy. So my criteria for giving a lecture is not to show how good I am, not sure how smart I am, because I don't think I'm either. I want to so make it as simple as possible and make it a talk that I want to hear. That's it.
Well, I can't think of a single thing I agree with there. Not a sentence. But yeah, you're one of the smartest guys I've ever met.
Oh,
when you reduce things to be simple, I'm telling the truth. And I don't say that to many people. Ask anybody.
Well, my kids tell me all the time I'm not that smart. My kids tell me all the time, Dad, you're not special. You're nothing.
There's a phrase that is missing from child rearing. That's a phrase I wish would come back. Because that is my mother talking. And you want to talk about the ultimate phrase now that you never, ever hear with people with childbearing was my mother's go-to. Why? Do you think you're something special? That's my mom talking. And that's everybody's parents talking. And that is sort of the anti-phrase you don't have now. People are snowflakes. They're special. They're this. There's my mother saying, 1956, why do you think you're something special? That's missing from life, and it needs to come back. Now that I'm safely over the draft age, I think conscription would help people. I think it knocks a lot of crap out of them, This is democracy.
That's true.
I really think so, and now my sons and I are safely past the age, so I'm where I'm sitting on my ass wondering what ought to be good for everybody else, So, let us be guided by that. Yeah.
That seems like everything. Our country, our ophthalmology, it's
right.
People, the tail end telling everyone else what to do.
Well, the one thing you can be sure of when you get a couple of old timers together is they're going to talk about how things are going to hell, and they're mean it. Because I remember thinking you'd see a couple of old guys, but these guys had to be like 35, old guys, and they're talking about one thing you can guarantee is they're sitting up there talking about how everything's going to hell.
Yeah.
And you'd get the townies, for instance, I'm thinking into Grand Rounds, and they'd be these old guys. That's one guy, he had to be 40, and he's an old bastard like that. They're sitting up there talking about arthritis and funerals, and basically those were the guys. I always thought, what do we have to teach you, old man? You're basically here like a guy who goes to races to see accidents, You're just hoping to see somebody get torn a new asshole. Yeah, and you're up there in the stands going to gladiator games and stuff like that. You're in there for the human interest story. You're not learning much,
That's the old days of Grand Rounds.
Oh yeah,
you going up there just to get attacked.
Oh yeah, and you're a tethered goat. And the thing is, it's a lot of the lessons are like boxing. You're trying to get a guy off balance. You're trying to get ahead of him. You're trying to scare him with false stuff. This is the part I'm proudest of is lectures. These are from the works of a guy named Stephen Potter, who is an Englishman writing in the early 50s. And he coined the phrases gamesmanship, lifemanship, one-upmanship is what he coined. And these books are just hilarious. For instance, he has a chapter on what he called winemanship that's like 9 pages long, Uday, and you can't ever watch a guy who gets to go through some kind of wine ritual and not get this little smile and be able to quote this verbatim, and it's all crapola, And he said, cultivate certain things, read down the wine list menu, pick out the second cheapest because it always tastes the best. And say, during the time, I don't see anything I like here. When everybody's there, say, let me, I know you got a bottle of Clicquot 73 here. Can I try that? And they have it because it's the second cheapest wine on the menu. And you look before it to everybody else, but act like they're bringing it out special. Think of some crap that you've done where you drink from the wrong side of the glass and say something. You said, take a taste, try to make it as loud as you can and act like you're chewing it and say something random, chicken piss on rusted railroad tracks. And when you've heard that, and now you're out in some restaurant 2 days later and you watch a guy do that, and you don't know what the hell you're thinking. You're thinking, I'm in on this joke, or everybody thinks like this, or this guy's serious. I mean, it's a laugh riot. So I was trying to write in that guy's style, but when I need to get back in this kind of arch mood, I'll try to reread a couple of chapters of Stephen Potter, and then I'm right on track again. Oh yeah, that guy. Oh yeah, how full of crap people are,
Well, it makes me feel better now because I can never quite get people say, well, swirl the wine. Do you see this?
Yeah.
Do you smell this? You have hints of barnyard. I'm like, what? I don't get any of this.
Maybe I'm smelling a hit of barnyard on you, Yeah, I'm always channeling my inner father thinking of this, because my dad was very much old school, boy. He lived to be 97. And his deal, I don't think he ever enunciated this, but you were full of shit till proven otherwise. And I mean, he was just very skeptical of anything you said or anything you did, and wasn't obnoxiously so. He just assumed everybody was like that. And to be able to grow up and have some nice father figures like that, I think a lot of people are missing that. They'll look at something and kind of shake their heads and make little, that helps a lot of people. You get a lot of, wisdom from chiefs and fathers and things like that if you got the right ones, and that's a matter of luck. Try and be lucky if you can't be smart.
Sometimes it's better to be lucky.
Yeah, you're quoting Bonaparte there. You really are. I prefer a lucky general to a smart one anytime, and yeah, absolutely. Or he said it. A lot of people have thought it before that, but he's the guy who gets credit for saying it. Somebody's writing it down, or you can take it. They had somewhere for applause. I have this slide on there. It's Joseph Stalin, and he's getting a 45-minute ovation. And basically, they're filming it for the first time, and nobody wants to be the first one to stop clapping. Because you can go back and, and think about where ovations and gestures and where things that look like when you start thinking about where does this come from, and then you get to the old man thing where you look at anything and you don't say, what is this? You're thinking, what is behind this? First thing you think. And that's not a great way to be, but it'll explain a lot of stuff. And well, what comes next? What would I do to be convincing? What would this, that? And you see, when you've been on the inside of some of it, a lot more, you've been on a lot more talking and things like than I have. You see what goes to the inside of that and how arguments are made. It's much more like learning to be a lawyer. And what do you say now? And fast on your feet. And how can you make something sound like something else? And that's a very real skill. And that's a very real set of skills. It's not always used for the benefit of mankind, but it's a skill set.
Yeah, for sure.
Well,
and
thank you for the many compliments, man. I'm going to look at my watch and I edit that out. I have no sense of time anymore.
Now we've only been talking for 45 minutes. We're good. We got 15 minutes to go. Yeah.
Wow. It feels like 20
here to
minutes.
have fun.
Well, you're kind to say so. I will back that up. I always look forward to Uday night when I'm going to meetings. We had a little troika or something and totally set that aside and try and learn something or know where the trends are or know what's going to be the next big thing, because that was always Uday. He saw through the bullshit and he could see where some things were going. Very few people can do that. You'll have a lot of people tell you they're doing it and you watch them. Uday'd come up with that more or less every time. These guys are full of shit. Those guys are fine. This is for real. It would be it was mostly, I just watched you. And I tried saved a lot of money. I wasn't always right, but I was never in doubt. Oh, that's me too. Oh, yeah. Well, you start doubting yourself. Where are you? That's right. Oh, yeah. And when I have stepped in the most shit has always been when I was I was believing. I was the least doubtful. This is it. I know this is it. That's when I've made my biggest mistakes. Yeah. Get away from being critical. But you always, and you'd get the pretty good inside information. Well, here's where we need to compete with these guys. And then you watch, you never know who to believe. It was
yeah. That's why you just gotta be a physician or a scientist.
Yes.
And always just start with doubt.
Doubt with doubt. Doubt will get you where nothing else will get you. And you need to do that. And the more you are sure of it, I don't want to criticize certain industries. It seems to me like they duplicate things. It seems to me like they seize on small or imaginary things and beat you over the head with that. Well, gee, we're the least likely. Or they'll see some verbiage in a FDA report and act like that's some big deal when that's actually just kind of nothing, about nothing, for nothing, shall not perish from the earth, by the nothing, for the nothing, shall the nothing, of the nothing, constitutes of nothing, shall not perish from the earth. It hasn't. The interesting thing.
We got a lot of marketing in ophthalmology, a ton of marketing, and sometimes the marketing drowns out the actual science.
Oh, I would say all the time, almost all the time. It used to be when the guys could get together and do that, and then you got egos, and the guys who represent that. You got to allow for that. One thing I'm going to try to do is try to get a thing where people wear numbers at meetings so you know how believable they are. Like in a football program, you can pick this up and you can publish that. How full of bullshit is this particular talk? And a guy could stand up there wearing a number 6. It means like you take what this guy says and divide by 6. You could do that. Let me see. Take your number of cases, divide by 6. Multiply complications by about 2 or 3. There's a number there. And there's always mathematics lurking underneath real science. And you're just wondering, why not eliminate the middleman and have people wear their own numbers? I mean, even have it right there in the program. And you could change it like golf handicaps change. So-and-so, he's a 5. I'm betting he's going to go to a 6 this time. I bought that machine. It didn't help me. It didn't do any of that. So he's down this handicap. It's a current number. You can play to that. I'm thinking you go in a speaker ready room and they got all these jerseys. I would actually pay extra. They could have a spot in there. They want to have money to run meetings to watch guys get assigned their number for that meeting. And they get to haggle about it. And you get to watch
even better. like a race car driver, I want their number on it, but I also want to see all the patches of the sponsoring companies.
Precisely. Yeah. And you can barely get the race cars aren't big enough to get all the endorsements on the race car. Yeah, we need a bigger race car. I can tell you our problem is our race cars are just too damn small, and we just can't get enough things on there. We need some real money. We got to get like a space shuttle size something and see if we can make that thing go really fast,
So where are we going with ophthalmology? What's the next 10 years?
Boy, I'll tell you, the next 10 years is a bunch of assembly line things, because it looks to me like they've got the cataract value and the surgery value down enough that you can't make any money practicing for the people that really who need it, which I think is a melancholy truth. And you got to process that on more of an industrial model, which means, basically you're standing in line like somebody in the first side. Welcome to heaven, here's your harp. Welcome to hell, here's your accordion. Welcome to heaven, here's your harp. It's more of an assembly line thing. You wind up being extremely time conscious, which means you're going to miss a lot of ophthalmic histories and a lot of details. I don't see it. I'm not seeing a happy future as people trying to stay in economic practice are you've got a story to relate and you want someone to hear it. There's a Lord Chesterfield's letters to his son when he said, don't forget common touch. He said, many people would rather you heard their story than fix their problem. And we're getting on the other side of that. And everything's going to be what it sounds like, and nobody's going to go underneath the surface or what that seems to be. I feel that now when I'm an old timer and I go to the doctor, the guy's filling out a damn computer form rather than talking to me. Gee, how's this? How was that? Well, gee, we need to do this, and it says we need an ophthalmic consult on this. Really? Well, just look back there. No, it says we need to do this. We've all talked to these guys on call. And, you repeat it 3 times and then you do what they want you to do. I guess I wear down. It's easier to go with this guy once than to listen to him anymore. Yeah. I wish I had something happier, man. I should have given it. We could approve a list of questions like we're having a party meeting, A melancholy truth. As you enter the system more as a patient, you learn some things that you never thought much of about feeling like they heard your story, the things you want to tell that may or may not be relevant. I think we're going to get where we miss more and more of that. And if you don't do that, you're going to go out of business. You're not going to make any money. You're not going to be able to support a staff properly. If you think you've got any sympathy from the public, you don't. They don't know what it involves. They might if they had an idea what it involves, but they don't. And they're forever going to present you with these providers. We've had mutual friends that I help keep up with their licenses. He'll apply to a license for like 12 states, and you read some of the most crap about how everything's a team now, and you got to do this. They want to make sure you watch all the comrades and watch this video. You need to do that. Gee, I can read faster than that. Everyone watches a movie at the same speed, so we want you to watch a movie because we're dumbing everything down. Yeah.
Yeah.
I wish I thought something else, man. And as I get to be a patient, you feel the lack of that more and more. Gee,
for me, for my primary care doctor, I just pay for the concierge service.
Yeah. Well, not everybody can do that. Well, that's you and I are spoiled because we know what goes into it, but not everyone can pay for it.
Right.
I mean, and that's I can pay for it too, and that's what I in fact do have. And so I go around what I'm describing to you, and I don't in fact get that, but I sure. And I didn't try and give it when I was in practice. I really tried to.
Right, of course.
And I got out soon enough that it wasn't really taken over as much, but that was certainly the trend. And the next thing you do is, that's Lenin. He said, well, the first thing you do is separate people from if you want to control the people, said Lenin, the first thing you do is separate them from their history. So deny everything that they know of that. The second thing is you debase the currency. And now you make everything the same amount. So you can't operate and make some money and have some time to screw around. And gee, here's what your ethics are. I'm thinking, and here's the guy who says, well, gee, wouldn't this be unethical? And you look at this government guy and you think, I got more ethics in my left nut than 10 of you put together if somebody ground you up, which would be a start, but it's not enough of a start, and you're telling me about ethics when, like a Martian talking about, getting a haircut. I mean, come on. Get pissed off at your dog because he won't read you the newspaper, stop it. Well, gee, I understand what you're doing here. And you want to say, what does your dog think you're doing when you sit in a rocking chair and read the newspaper? What does your dog think you're doing?
Yeah,
What?
I don't know.
Well, yeah, exactly. You don't. And so this inexplicable behavior, you want to have a history, take a history. Well, what is all this conversation? Why am I paying for that?
Right.
Yeah. And, those who don't know teach, those who can't teach others to teach. What? You got the guys who are like this, who don't know it themselves and never will because they're going to miss doctors when they don't have them anymore, when it's all providers, and it's going that way. And it's going to be the team spirit, and we'll have lost something. And then you go a generation, it's gone. What was that? Well,
right.
Yeah. And you'll get the occasional artiste, but
even better. We're developing robots to do the surgery for you.
You know what we need? People that say, let's get a robot for the office. What people say, let's get a robot to do surgery. I always felt alive in surgery, and I felt like I'd use a robot in the office. Well, that looks okay to me. I guess that's nothing much. Pay on the way out, please. A lot of what I did in the office was a hell of a lot more robotic than surgery is. Surgery, you had to be paying attention on the ball. Back at, I'll hear that. Let's have robots do surgery. Why don't we have robots in the office? Well, I guess that'll be okay. That looks okay to me. Here's your form. Don't you know how to read? You better learn.
We can have robots do intravitreal injections because the pharma companies need more revenue. We do more injections that way.
The most obscene fact that I've heard in the last 30 years is the revenue from one vitreous retinal drug surpasses all ophthalmology, surgery, equipment, everything.
Yeah.
The income from one retinal drug surpasses that. And that's some fact like a dinosaur vertebra where you can imply this whole world and have it be true, where it's not true. From this one fact, many things spring, and many things you can be sure of, and they're all bad, melancholy things about the wrong people are getting rich for the wrong reasons. But, there you go. What is the priority? What do we say it is? What's the reason you give? You always were good at that.
Well, now, just, we're just happy that we can do what we love and help patients. And unfortunately, it's changed a lot.
Yeah.
It'll change again, but we still love what we do. I'm so blessed to be in the operating room. I love it.
I am too. And I feel the same. Well, I'm retired, and I don't think anybody, but when you slant a system economically, it'll give you it'll reward the more intelligent people that can see through that. And now the orthopedics guys are going to get big because they've got devices they can sell, manufacturers who can lobby. And they were always the room temperature IQs were the orthopods. When I was going to school, the orthopods would joke about it. Well, I'm an orthopod, so I'm not too smart. Well, that was the watchword. Hell, they'd joke about it themselves. It's going the other way because they make this big money. Well, since you got a gas there, you got a Boyle's law of orthopods. Now their ego will to fill that container. It's like a gas. And so when you cramp them up, when you push it down, that gets more explosive. When they start bumping into each other, the heat goes up, the pressure goes up, like real life, like doctors. There's a Boyle's law there. When you compress that thing, they're bumping each other more and getting hotter and more disorganized. That's the orthopods now. They've got a thing where they're making money. Well, the first thing you do is figure out how that's entirely justified and has been all along. And they should have been making this kind of case well before this, and now they're finally being recognized. And then one day, that'll change with a stroke of some bureaucrat's pencil one day. But right now, the same as us when it was $2,250 cataract, we were geniuses. Well, hell, just look at this. If I wasn't a genius, would I be making this much money? I remember when they came out with that Sunshine Act, and they're going to produce. My only concern with that Medicare thing was, gee, I hope I don't get an embarrassingly small number. So I walk in there with a bunch of guys that are going to be kidding each other. The general public doesn't know how to read that. They had the retinal guys get full retail value for all the injections they did. So they're in the stratosphere on these millions. Patients didn't read that at all. And I was hoping they would. You go in there and, they think I'm worth this. What the hell have you got? Yeah. Well, look at I, you know, these guys don't have a lot of imagination, and they're going to publish and explain. You know what I'm talking about.
Yeah, for sure.
People
And the
begin
Sunshine
to
Act.
equate, yeah, the Sunshine Act. Anything
Yeah,
but.
for sure.
Yeah.
Anything worth more than $10, it has to be reported.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. To guys who mouth breathe and think anyone. There's a George Carlin line, you mentioned him earlier, where you're driving at the correct speed, it is, and everybody. Well, I got to get the language out of this. Everybody who drives a mile an hour slower and faster than you do is a maniac, and everybody who drives a mile an hour slow you is an idiot. And actually, he
Yeah.
modifies the phrase "idiot" to the common one. And you're thinking how true that is on some other things. Well, you're doing it correctly, and everybody's doing this.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Well, if you're doing that, you must be an asshole. I just don't see how. And so those guys think that everybody who makes a dime more than they do in a year has got to be a gangster. You can't make that money being honest. Look at me, I'm honest. That guy's making more than he does. There's no honest way to do that. Therefore, he's a gangster. We just haven't figured out how to do that yet. It's time to bring him down. I hate guys like him. I hate all guys like him. I hate everybody do it better than me. You're up against that thinking. And that never goes anywhere.
Yeah. Wasn't this why you got to realize your most important asset, most valuable asset is time and your happiness? You got to prioritize those. The other stuff doesn't matter.
Unlike everything else, time's got a limit. And there can be guys who have unlimited money. And it's interesting how people go back to that, what we'd call in chemistry, what a rate limiting step. And you get I remember a guy in New Orleans, we had a patient, and this guy owned some oil leases, and he made it seemed to me like all the money in the world, and $80,000 a day. I'm going to say, well, this guy starts marshaling his time. He gets very jealous of his time because you and I and everybody get 24 hours a day and 60 minutes an hour, and that's it. And you don't know what your end pot is, but you go to the rate limiting step, and that becomes a thing you ration and pay attention to. And this guy, there was nothing he wanted to buy. There was nothing he wanted to do, but he had the same time as you and me. And so, he tried to ration it for himself. That makes a lot of sense. And that's what, in fact, this guy did. But there is a rate limiting step for you and I. Now, I'm trying to think of the guy who said this, but the trouble with being poor is just the damned inconvenience. And I'm thinking how true that is. You got to stand in line for this or that, or do, that's the truth. You spend a lot of your time spinning wheels.
Yeah, that's for dang sure.
Yeah,
but better than the alternative.
Oh yeah, no argument there. Oh yes, well yeah, no argument there. Common sentiment, but I mean, and they don't say much. Who knows if it's not terrific? You go to something better,
You never know, right? As they say, this whole thing, what we call our world, could just be a computer simulation.
Oh yeah. It would explain a lot. In fact, there was a guy that said, it's hard to believe the universe was created by one God, but it's very easy to imagine it was done by a committee. And the older you get, the more you've been around committees and been on committees and know how clueless they are. That strikes me as a more and more true. This looks like it was done by a committee. And we get, we keep incentivizing the wrong things for the wrong reasons.
Yeah.
And it hasn't ending. Yeah.
But it's been a fun adventure so far in life. It's been plenty ups and downs. It's kind of been a nice zero-sum game. All my pluses have been equally negated by my negatives. I'm basically at zero.
Zero sum. Well, ophthalmology, we have the whole thing. I'm going to try and work on that for the next kind of set of concepts for talks. I'm going to try and have, the conservation of energy and the conservation of mass in science. Ophthalmology, particularly grand rounds, we have the conservation of fun. And therefore, it's a zero-sum game. There's only so much fun in the universe. And if you're getting more fun, if, there's the pizza pie, if you get more pizza, somebody else gets something less. So you got to move in there. Somebody's got to have a lot less fun than you, and you're taking their fun and taking it for you. It's a zero-sum game. Now, you could also argue that, like anti-mass, anti-energy, and things like this, negative things, antimatter, can you have such a thing as anti-fun? And you're feeling like, there is, and I am here to tell you, as you know, from being a surgeon and from being a resident, for God knows, there is such a thing as anti-fun. You
Yeah.
got to create anti-fun in the precise ratio that the universe creates additional fun. Because I've had anti-fun created for me, particularly in grand rounds. And anti-fun is deeply experienced. So you have the exact correspondence. The additional fun you get is the exact mathematical universe ratio of the anti-fun you've done for somebody else. You're getting more of your own grand rounds fun. So you have an exact thing going on that's a law of the universe. And they say, is there such a thing as anti-fun with science? Well, I'll tell you what. It's like the old Texas boy is asked if he believes in infant baptism. Anti-fun. He said, believe in it? Believe in it? Do I believe in it? Hell, I've seen it done. And I myself have felt anti-fun, as have we all. So, the search for it continues, but look no further. It's obeying the mathematical laws of the conservation of fun. Now, that's every grand rounds you were ever in. So if you have more, somebody else has a lot less. And yeah. So there's some science in there. Yeah.
That's Bill. This has been an adventure. We've been talking for more than an hour here. I'm loving it. I'm gonna hour and 6 minutes. I'm gonna put a link down below for all our podcast listeners. Please definitely check out the Dr. Bond Report. It's a YouTube channel. Again, links down below. I promise you're gonna love it. And feel free to contact Dr. Bond and give me your suggestions for a future topic.
Well, Uday, thank you. And this has been a big break for me, and you're a hell of a guy. Thank you. I appreciate
You're welcome.
it. Yeah.
Remind our listeners and viewers, remember, we got a new CataractCoach podcast every Sunday on Apple, Amazon, Spotify, Google, and where you find a podcast, you find the CataractCoach podcast. Plus, of course, we have a new CataractCoach video every single day, 2,800 and something days in a row, and never missed a day. So until next time, I'll catch you later.